random like objects or patterns a sign of schizophrenia?
I don't know. The test finds all kinds of weird stuff. What's it?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I'm
but
know,
probably
the
mispronouncing it. The
Rorschach.
Rorschach test.
Rorschach. Yeah,
Rorschach.
I actually volunteered one time when there were a bunch of psychology students because they had to like learn to give assessments. And since I was doing classes through my PhD program that were a lot of them were in the School of Psychology, I wound up sitting and just, sure, I'll play and take these tests. And I answered honestly. I did not mask. I let all of my lovely neurodivergence fly. I don't think they were prepared for that. It was great.
There's the professor. Oh dear.
It was not. It's the professor. It's that nice lady who shows up and sits with her coffee and answers questions and takes notes. And oh my lord, how does her brain work? It was great when going, I know I'm supposed to say this, but actually this is what I'm thinking. And they're like, I don't know how we're supposed to record that.
When I was taking college courses here 15 years ago at the community college, there was a story going around about something that happened in one of the psychology classes there that blew up, apparently. I don't know whether it's true or not, but supposedly a group of students decided to go ahead and put some of the theories to test, and they decided amongst themselves that they would only ask the professor questions if he was on the left side of the chalkboard.
Oh,
And so
no.
after a while, it started training him to start walking in that general direction, asking if there were any questions. And when he found out, he fucking exploded. He
I'm
burst
sure.
into flames and was threatening to expel people and bringing up ethics charges against them for experimenting on humans without their permission. Oh, he was mad.
I would venture to say there's not a single psychology prof out there or English prof who hasn't done exactly the same kind of bullshit to their students. So I don't want to hear it.
I might have once or twice. I might have. I know there was at least one time I was so fed up with everybody that I pretended I lost my voice and couldn't talk, but we still had to have class. And so I wound up writing everything on the board and I made them all talk.
Oh, wow.
They asked me a week later if I was feeling better.
I had a prof in college
Suckers.
who's also my writing advisor. And he said basically, y'all have attention deficit disorder. This is back in 90, 91. You've all been trained by TV for 8 minutes bits. So he had gotten to the point where when he mapped out what he was going to talk about, he always threw in a commercial. He had a set of commercials, and they would just basically stop in mid thought or finish a thought and then throw in a commercial for 2 minutes, discussion about something pop culture or crazy or whatever, and then jump right back in. And oh my God, the hour went so fast.
So the professor who was my undergrad advisor when I was studying ocean engineering, he would do the same thing. However, he was this like 6'2" tall, rail thin gentleman from Poland, and he had a very, very thick Polish accent.
Of course he did.
And so, but at 20 minutes, every time, 20 minutes into the 45-minute, 55-minute lecture, it would be, okay, so now I'm going to stop and I'm going to tell you a joke because your brain needs to rest and I have a joke for you. And he would tell the joke, and he would always, and if you always wanted to take class with him at like the 10, 11 o'clock hour, because the man was punctual about lunch. It's like, I will end on time because I get up early, I have my coffee, and then I have to go and get lunch. So please do not interrupt me after class. I want to go and get lunch. You can come and meet with me after lunch in my office, but I would like to go have lunch.
I like this prof already.
Oh, Dr. Zabrowski was the best. The absolute best. He was also the one who said that I would probably never really build ships, but I'd wind up like running shows on ships, and clearly he was not that far off.
I had a friend of mine growing up whose name was Zoborowski, and he became a parole officer, is what he did there, and so we started calling him Zobo Cop.
Zobo Cop. That's bad. really bad.
He told the he had he was the master of Polish jokes. And then since he went to A&M, he would tell Polish Aggie
Oh,
jokes.
Aggie jokes. Oh, Jesus Christ. The lack of brain cells, I can already feel them just being sucked out of my skull. Never even heard a joke. I guess I better say howdy, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Dead Robot Society. I am Paul E. Cooley. Joining me today, as always, Veronica Jaguar, and who's booked, and Terry, the Spice Must Flow Mixon. How the hell are you? Of course, I already know how you are because I'm talking to you for 35 minutes.
I think I need to have my eyes colored blue, so they glow a little bit.
You want glowing eyes?
More
they make contacts for
blue
that.
than they are. I mean, there's a filter for that. But
Well, it's in Dune. It's the whites of the eyes are glowing blue.
Yeah, he's
there's
on
probably
a
a
Dune
filter for
kick.
that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not on a Dune kick. I just saw the second half of the movie yesterday, so
You're on a Dune kick.
I never read the
And?
books, so never really. My answer is that it was a good movie. I don't think it was as good as part one, but that's probably because it was faithful to the story in the novel, and that meant that there was a lot of non-action stuff going on, and that's probably because of the book. So I can't blame it for that. I would give it a 4, whereas the first one was a 5. There you
Okay.
are.
Gotcha.
That's pretty standard for sequels, though.
Well, apart from Dune, what the hell have you been up to?
I've been editing. I've been writing. My writing is going well. I can't complain. I know, right? I'm not sure how I missed it, but somehow when I was younger, I missed it. Maybe the writing was boring and I didn't like it. I don't know. I'm not sure.
That's right. How can you write space opera and never read Dune? What the hell's wrong with you? It's time to make the donuts. William, stop it. Stop it. So you've actually been up to stuff is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I've been productive. I've been doing things. I played hooky today, but every other day I've been busy writing. I'm more than 20,000 words done with the next book. It's
Nice.
flowing well. I think that instead of 15 books, it is going to end up being 16, but I have clearance to do 17 if required, but I don't think it's actually going to be necessary. I think 16 is probably where it's going to land.
This might
You're
be
not going to need
book.
a 17th bonus epilogue book.
I don't think so. You don't want the story to go too fast and rush the ending, and you also don't want to drag it out when you should have ended it already.
The epilogue is 30,000 words.
And I think that 16 books is probably where it needs to be to land.
And it's
Wasn't
easy
it
to do
Battlefield
4
Earth?
evenly spaced omnibuses, too.
Yeah.
Wasn't Battlefield Earth the one that had like a 20 or 30,000 word epilogue?
I have no idea. I remember having the Battlefield Earth paperback, and it was huge.
It was
It
massive.
was like massive paperback.
It's like 1,500 pages. You basically
read
put it down on its spine, and you could just hear the spine crack as the book fell open to the center. Because it had no choice. Well, V, what have you been up to?
I've been running around for doctor's appointments with kids and prepping scripts and doing contracts and all sorts of lovely admin stuff. So the good news is that I managed to get booked with projects through June. So that's yay. Part of that is because one of my authors forgot to send me 2 books
Oops. I
that she
forgot.
wanted done. But it's probably a good thing because I did not have time this week. I needed to get contracts put together for other stuff. But so that will be... So essentially that means I have right now 5 books and 2 ongoing Patreon subscription sort of projects that are on deck. And then auditions. So I recorded an audition. Hello, Sassy. She's so floofy. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so I've got those. 3 of them are re-records of a project that I did 10 years ago. And I've got accent coaching coming up this week. So that will be loads of fun. I'm super excited for that. because I want to punch up my British RP and my British South African and a couple other things that I need to work on.
British
South
African.
okay, so if you think of like when you're working with accents, especially in countries where you've had a colonizer presence come in, and you have the country winds up ruling itself, but you still have remnants of colonialism in there, and you may have people who, in a lot of, usually think British. So you've got, in this case, South Africa had a Dutch influence, so that's the Afrikaans, but you also have the British influence, and one of the main male characters in 2 of the 3 books he's from South Africa, but his parentage is British. So it's figuring out that accent. And if you hear it, it sounds like a mishmash of British RP and New Zealand. So the vowels twist a little bit.
Yeah.
The main character is from Oxford, so I can get away with British RP, but I've got to work the accent so I can tweak it for characters. Because usually if you know an accent, then you can apply the same kinds of tricks for your voice. To change the pitch, to change the speed. So I get to punch that up, and then I realized I was prepping the 3rd book. It's like, I have to do the British colonial version of Egyptian flavored Arabic. And so you have to take your English. Imagine someone who has learned English as a second language, but they haven't learned it American English. They've learned British English, and it's transferred where their first language is Arabic in Egypt.
You do realize that the vast majority of us can't tell the goddamn difference between any of this shit.
No, but people who listen wind up... The people who know what they're hearing, it can turn somebody off really, really quickly. That's right. Matt, I actually do have a question for you, because I have to mangle a Welsh accent, probably a Southern Welsh accent.
I wasn't aware you could mangle a Welsh accent.
Isn't it like self-mangling?
You just cough a bunch of phlegm up in your throat.
That's the Northern one. That's the Southern one's more lyrical. So RP stands for received pronunciation. And the other way to think about it is that's like your newscaster. That's your BBC. British. So just if there's a really good actor or actress from the same, because I learned by mimicking. So anyway, but yeah, so that's my next week, is I get to play with accents and punch things up.
Back in the 90s, I lived in Austin, Texas, and I drove a cab, and I picked up some South African tourists and took them to the hotel from the airport, and they were talking in Afrikaans in the back seat as I was driving. I have never heard a more harsh language.
It is.
I am confident that there was no vowels used in that particular conversation.
It's a very Afrikaans it's a very harsh, biting, upper. The best, if you've ever actually, you know who does a really, really good example from the Marvel movies, Andy Serkis. His character from...
I know the one you're talking about.
I'm trying to remember which one. It's not... What movie is that?
It was Black Panther. One of the Black Panther movies.
Yes. So that's a really good example of that kind of Afrikaans accent, if you're looking for the British...
I was going to say the ones in the taxi were a lot harsher than what he used. Mm-hmm. The only reason I know that it was Afrikaans is I asked them what language it was, because I was curious.
Yeah, I have no shame anymore. I'll just ask, like, "Ooh, what language is that? Where are you from?" Like, "Oh, really?" And I love when people go, "Where are you from?" "England." That's great. I'm from the U.S. What part?
Yes, but
And
you're an
I
ignorant
will
American. How the fuck would you know to ask that question?
go figure. So,
Am I
so
wrong?
yeah. What about you, Paul?
I've been dealing with chronic depression for the last week, and it's been really, really tough to be productive. Probably has something to do with the fact that I can't fucking record without noise getting in the way.
I suggest shock therapy, and I'm willing to go ahead and bring my car up there so we can use my battery.
You know, I had the magnetic therapy and it didn't stick. So maybe the shock therapy is the way to go. But An Ancient Trap is selling well.
Yay!
For me, anyway, it's selling well. Um,
Yay.
yes, I did release a new book. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's why I'm depressed. I have been anxious about it. I've been very, very anxious about it. Oh, Nate.
Well,
Well,
if
there you
and that's
go.
the thing. If you want the two best places, I always say that if you want to look into audiobook narration, narrator.life, because they have like free intro courses, so to kind of get your feet wet. And then another site that has a bunch of good links on everything related to audiobooks is narratorsroadmap.com.
I don't know, Xander. I don't know that the Sailor Cooley outfit is going to go ahead and be effective on him.
No, it's a Sailor Moon outfit for you, Terry.
I said what I said.
I already recycled my Pinkie Pie costume from Dragon Con, so I can't help. Sorry.
Wow. Wow. So yesterday, V asked a question, or maybe it was Terry. No, it was Terry actually. Asked that question: how do you measure success? And that was a really interesting question because it started in our little private chat about the fact that does it have money? Oh, stop that!
Is that the imperial success or is that the metric success?
Oh,
And do
sorry.
you have
There's the metric one. There you
Okay.
go.
is this the flaccid or rigid measurement? That's my other question.
Flaccid. Do we use language like that? Ooh.
Yes. That was good. That was really good. That was
Sorry, hang
excellent.
on. So do you want this? Or do you want this?
Oh no. Terry, where's the Sailor Cooley? Look, I don't know what kind of deranged planet you people are from, but stop putting this shit into my brain. You know, at some point I'm going to go to sleep and I have very vivid dreams occasionally. And last thing I want is Terry prancing around in
Puts
that
the
outfit.
lotion on the skin or it gets the hose again. I mean,
So
Puts the words on the page.
when you go to Vegas, I'm not supposed to come out of the bathroom wearing the Sailor Cooley outfit?
No.
do I need to bring
We're
the
gonna
sewing kit? I mean, just so you have things to touch up.
It
I
says there
mean-
goes any side of a family friendly rating. Dude, where have you been? Okay, so we've had bidet podcast. Now we're having the Measure Yourself podcast. I'm not even going to.
I don't want to get into a measuring contest. V is going to win.
I'm going to save it for after dark.
Okay, now I'm really terrified. I was thinking about this because we have Terry here who's got 40 books or something ridiculous now,
Something like that.
and it's done extremely, extremely well. I'm starting to get my career back out of the dumpster fire it's been in for several years. And so I'm lower on the rung than Terry is and trying to make my way up at this point.
Only on the dollar scale.
Well, and there's the question. What I have been terrified of is that the black was the only thing of mine that would ever sell. And for better or worse, and maybe it's just a flash in the pan, we'll see. But if AET keeps doing the way it's doing, it'll be the first book that I've written on my own and published on my own that actually is getting bought and getting read, which is more important to me, is that it's getting read. So from my standpoint, this book's only been out for a week and some change. And if it keeps going the way it's going, it's going to pay for its artwork and its editing in the first month easily. So from that standpoint, the way I'm looking at it, it's already a success. It's already a success.
Everybody has a different metric for success. Even if you're talking authors that are pursuing money, everyone still has a different metric for what they considers is success. If you live in some rural area where the cost of living is low, your bar for a successful career in writing may be significantly lower than somebody living in San Francisco or New York City.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So that did bring the question, how do you measure that? Do you measure it by copies? Do you measure it by how much money you're making? Do you measure it by how many folks you have on your mailing list? Do you measure it by, do people know who you are? How do you measure that?
Well, the answer, once again, depends on the person. I say the answer is yes in general, because you're going to find people all over that have those things you mentioned and many, many, many more things that they see as the marker of success. And my original question wasn't necessarily what are the markers of success. The question was, how do you achieve success over the long term with whatever metric you have? So that's sort of a related question.
Brett says, I wonder how a super best-selling author measures success, i.e. Grisham, King, Rowling.
Well, with King, it's how many editors can I ignore and still publish my book?
That's completely fair. You
Rude.
stop that.
There's, how many adaptations can you get? Can you get
Oh, God.
Can you get it into, print, ebook, audio? Can you get the movie or series rights? How many translations can you get?
Oh, God.
It's interesting. I mean, for my part, there's some things that I've done that that I don't necessarily count as like success, because they may not translate monetarily, but they look cool. Like with Secret World Chronicle, for a while there, I could get a kick out of walking into a Barnes and Noble that was carrying Baen books and be able to go, ooh, my name's on that. That's kind of neat. And I could do it for a while. It's like,
Is getting in a
cool.
bookstore a margin of success? Oh, I'm in Barnes and Noble. I have achieved my lifelong dream.
And that's the thing.
That's valid. Some people, they have a memoir in them. I want to tell my own story. I don't care if anybody buys the book. I've got to get that one thing out of my head. I've achieved it. I'm successful.
Yeah. And for me, it's, can I write something and have fun? And monetarily, can I pay a kid's tuition? It's for me. No, seriously, for me right now, it's very
I hear
practical. It's, can I not be in the red at the end of the year? When I started doing audiobooks full time, I decided that I could call it a success, or it would be really like, yes, I finally did it, would be when my take home, not the net, because that I was trying to set the bar a little lower, but when my gross earnings equaled what I left the university for. And last year was crap, so I'm just gonna
pretend it never happened.
I'm going to chalk it up to learning, because there were other good things that happened that year, and there mistakes were made and stuff has been learned, and I'm gonna try not to repeat those mistakes. But the year before, I was less than $10,000 off from my net. I'm like, ooh, okay, so I could do this. But at the same time, still, stuff is selling. Royalties are relatively stable. Writing wise, I'm working on three different projects, 2 of them with the intent to publish them traditionally, because I have that outlet. And right there, knowing that if it finishes, immediately goes into that pipeline.
Mm.
That's a luxury a lot of people don't have. And it's like, is that success? Sure. But I just want to keep telling stories.
When I started
And pay
writing,
tuition.
yeah, sure. When I started telling stories under my own name, I already knew that the layoff from NASA was coming.
Yeah.
The longest layoff in history. A year and a half ahead of time, I knew it was coming.
And they
I
still
thought my
tried to
7
bring
months-
you back.
I thought my 6 months was bad. Jeez.
Yeah, every 3 months they extend it more. So it's like, oh, you're being laid off in 3 months. Oh no, we're going to kick that out the can down the road. Oh, we're going to kick that can down the road. So yeah, that was a terrible sort of thing. And
Good night,
you're
Wesley.
right.
I'll most likely kill you in the morning.
Exactly. So I already knew the ending was coming. My initial goal for success was to replace my income as an IT professional being a NASA contractor with writing. And I knew that it was unlikely that that was going to happen. I went into this trying to find a regular IT job and not having any luck because my skills at NASA, unfortunately, are using ancient technology as opposed to the cutting edge. And that did not
The
serve
beta
me
government.
well. But that first year, I achieved, I think, maybe 2/3 of my NASA salary, maybe a little bit less. Maybe it was like 60%. And I said, that's promising. That's promising. And I've redoubled my efforts. And the next year, I slightly increased it over what I made at NASA. And here I am, almost 10 years down the road, and I'm making roughly 3 times what I made as a contractor at NASA. So I've succeeded by the metrics I set for myself when I started. I don't know that I've really redefined what success is because I'm no longer concerned about success. I'm concerned with maintaining the momentum of what I'm doing. If my income fell, obviously I would consider that a failure, but I'm not stressed over it. A lot of people don't have that level of financial success, and I wish they did, but I'm not going to castigate myself because I achieved success in the monetary funds.
It is going to take a lot of books to even get close to what I was making in the software development industry.
You probably made a
books.
lot more money than I did as a NASA contractor.
I made at least twice what you were making.
I was making $72,000 a year when I was laid off.
Okay, I was making 115
So
at
yeah,
the job I left,
significantly more than what I was making.
and that was before
was-
stock options and all the other horse shit that goes along with that.
Yeah. And I was making, I think it was just shy of 50.
And for those of
So-
you that can do math, I've already said that I'm now making 3 times what I made at NASA, so you can figure out ballpark what I'm making in a year.
Disgusting. I think when we
And yet
started this,
encourage him.
when the Black first came out, Justin asked me something about this, and I was like, my goal is to pay my mortgage every month with my writing. Between Patreon, between audiobooks, and between my book sales, I've been doing that for a while. And strangely enough, the ebooks until now, until I got the Black rights back, the ebooks were the weakest part of anything that I had, monetarily speaking.
Have they recovered?
They've more than recovered as far as I'm concerned.
Do you believe that there may have been publisher malfeasance?
I feel like this is an intro for a lawyer commercial.
I feel like this is a trap.
It's not
What
a trap.
What I think is that I've had to put no marketing into this book, no money whatsoever into these books. And they have made more money than they were at Severed. I can't tell you if that's because of the covers, because the covers are bright, shiny, very new, very interesting, and grab the eye. And that may be one of the reasons. It may also be because people were buying it again. I really can't tell you why it's selling better than it is, but the fact that I haven't had to put any money into advertising is a little scary to me. And it means to me that the publisher could have done a better job.
That
PR.
reminds me.
Mhm.
I'm going to post this.
Moral of the story on this is don't pay for shit covers. Don't shortcut when it comes to shit covers, because people will judge. And I have walked, book fairs and whatnot, and I have done a complete 180 because I saw a cover that was like, that's what I want to see, that's what I want to read. Or even better, when I was at 20 Books and going through Rave and getting books for my kids, I knew about what my daughter wanted to read. All I had to do was look for the cover. It was like, oh, yep, that's in the genre. And the cover made me stop, pick up the book, read the blurb. It's like, I need this, please.
Variant started a new advertising campaign for The Last Hunter yesterday or today. I can't remember which.
Looks
and
nice.
I posted it in live because he sent me a copy of the ad.
That looks pretty awesome. That does look awesome. Brett says the advertising. No, the advertising was your first few books that people read and how they look for them. Now they look for them. You might be right about that. It may also be the fact that Station 3 did okay, and at least who knows. But it may just be because of the Derelict Saga. People may be coming back for an Ancient Trap just because, oh, we know Cooley writes this kind of book, or it's somebody going, hey, he wrote The Black. I wonder what this is like. And let's hope they're not disappointed. But it's
selling. Clearly, they're not.
Yeah, regardless of what it is or what what's driving things now, the question of The Black becomes: would it have kept selling had I kept putting books out? And I've only got 3 more books to put out in that series because it just has got to end. It just has to.
It will never end.
No, it literally has to. It's time to say goodbye before it gets tired. And that's the problem with that kind of story is eventually you got to keep raising the stakes, and eventually the stakes are so high that you can't come back from them. They're final. So I gotta work on that. But that's if that's the case, then hopefully if we can do the rapid release this year with Evolution followed by Oceania followed by Extinction, then I'm gonna have a fucking banner year. If I can manage to pull that off. Of course, that still requires me to finish Extinction, but that's a whole nother conversation. Tim says, like, my guess would be the same as Brett's. Also, I've been experimenting with AMS ads using brands, and it had interesting results lately. AMS?
Amazon marketing.
Okay, Amazon marketing. I thought so. It ends with The Black Eats the World. Well, when I call it Extinction, is it Extinction of the Black or Extinction of Humanity? Question for Terry. How much do you keep in reserve for covers and editing, given your self-published stuff? How deep is your war chest?
Well, since
he's a kept man, that's no longer an issue.
I'm now a kept man. So the last 12, 13 books, 13 is about to come out. I haven't had to do any of the covers on my own dime. I haven't had to do any of the editing on my own dime. I haven't kept a whole lot in reserve for that. But when I was writing and publishing my own stuff, I didn't keep a war chest for it because the income I was making was still, I guess, was $170, $180 a year at that time. And so I was able to go ahead and pay for it out of pocket when the bill came due without overly financially stressing myself. That's one of the things that having some financial success as a writer means is that you don't have to fret about, can I afford this cover? Can I afford this editing? You just pay it when it comes due.
Which I've been doing the past several years, but now I'm really conscious about I have to schedule that, and I have to make sure I've got enough money lying around to make it happen. So don't
we all know how Scott Pond is. So if you just go ahead and, give him some of the stuff you put out on OnlyFans, he'll probably give you a cut rate on those covers.
Baby, I'm on his OnlyFans. What are you talking about?
Wow.
How much, if you were going to do it again, how much do you recommend people keep on hand for this? Terry's a bad example because his wife put his covers together.
She builds my covers, so that's the only cover that I had to buy for myself was for the post-apocalyptic book because we didn't have the skills to put the right kind of cover for that. And we contacted the artist that created a lot of the imagery that I use in the Empire covers. And I think we ended up paying a couple of $100 for the cover through him, and it was acceptably good. It wasn't the best post-apocalyptic cover I've ever seen, but it was good enough, and so we were happy with it. If you, depending on what you're doing for covers, you can spend as little as a couple of $100 on a decent cover to thousands of dollars for a fabulous cover.
Painted.
The first thing you need to say is, what am I aiming to achieve? What level of cover do I want to get? If you have to pick a number, you have to have your own expectations of what you're going to get out of that. Without knowing that, I can't guess at how much you should reserve. If it was me doing that for myself and I wanted to have really good covers, I would budget $1,000 and expect to spend most of it.
The other thing
editing,
is if it's a series,
editing $800 maybe, if you're going to get a full copy edit and proofreading when you're done. Maybe as little as $500. I don't know.
I was going to say if it's a series and you use the same cover artist, you might be able to get a break. And also, if it's using the same theme, you can basically get them to make a template so that all the books kind of look like that. All the titles are the same, kind of in the same place, the same motif. There are ways that you can probably do that if you find an artist that'll work with you on how to do all that. But it's ridiculous. It's basically, you can get a cover for $40. I wouldn't recommend it, up to, like Terry said, thousands and thousands of dollars. Some are hand painted, for crying out loud.
The ones that are done for the Last Hunter series are done by a gaming company out of Germany that I don't know the name of off the top of my head. At least I believe that's what it is. And they are expensive. They are pricey.
Yeah.
Rick said cover $500, editing $1,500. I'd almost say you'd be better served by switching those numbers around.
I think a copy edit read adept for like a 95,000 word, don't quote me on this, is somewhere in the $400, $350, $400. And I know
if you're paying $1,500 for editing, I think you may be overpaying for that editing.
Yeah, that's just me. Unless your book is humongous. But it does depend on what kind of editing you're getting and the service and everything else. Yeah, copy edits are cheap compared to other options. Developmental edits, yeah, you're talking serious cash. Now you're talking $800 to $1,500 easily, if they're any good.
With the way that this works, when you've got a book, the first thing people see is the cover. The second thing they see is the back cover copy, the blurb that you're using to sell that book. Only if those two pass do they get into the book to see how the book is itself. You might be better served with a fabulous cover and average editing rather than an average cover and fabulous editing.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're probably right about that. I think you're probably right about it. But it also depends on your skill level. You mean some people need more help than others, and that's just the way it is. I just hope if you need a lot of help, you get better every book.
What I've been doing with Red Adept, when I was doing with Red Adept, I actually only paid for a pair of proofreadings when I sent the books in. I didn't pay for the actual editing. And when I had a conversation with them about it, they were shocked. They said, well, we thought you had somebody else editing the books. They came in so clean. I was like, no, this is just how I produce.
Tim says I've been paid around $2,000 to write and edit a whole book as a ghostwriter. That was my trial price. Editing at the same rate seems potentially excessive. Trial price equal discount. Oh, gotcha. Huh. $2,000 to write. Brett says I edited two books for free. I need to reevaluate my life.
Obviously, they got what they paid for. Ayo!
What a jerk. How would you know? You wouldn't. Anyway, that was an interesting aside. So I think we covered that. What else should we jump into?
Well, we don't really have time to jump into the other thing we were going to talk about. We'll have to save that for the after show, which is probably good because there's going to be all kinds of foul language.
Probably.
I would simply say that while you're getting your cover made and all of that, you might want to make sure that you vet the artist, or understand or put in the contract with them that they're not allowed to use Mid-Journey or something else to create the cover.
You absolutely should put that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because
there can be consequences. And the consequences can be in the court of public opinion. And that can get angry.
see the conversation in general on the Discord. It's been fun, and there's more stuff going on. So yeah, we'll have to do that in the after show, because we've been talking about AI too much, and V has put a timer on us, and so we can't really talk about it.
She's going to have a flag. The AI flag is thrown. You must stop talking.
Yeah, unfortunately, when we get concerned and passionate about topics, it gets bad.
Tim says, for context, the books I Ghost wrote were around 50K. Okay.
All right.
I can see that. I would charge a lot more than that. Yeah, consequences. V is Team AI, but we like her anyway. Oh my god.
What? That must have been JR said that, because he's just a troll.
It was JR.
Troll.
Julius came, he saw, he conquered Terry's headshot.
You shouldn't talk bad about JR, about VJR, because, if you keep doing that, we're going to say you're a couple of rounds short on your magazine.
You're the dud grenade.
A couple of fries short of a Happy Meal. Isn't that for Marines like saying you're a few crayons short of a box?
A few crayons short on lunch?
Short of a box?
They have the whole thing about Marines eating crayons, so...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my parlance on all this stuff is, the military trash talk is a little dated, if I ever had it. All right, so we got through that. Sort of not.
Well, so, I mean, if we were looking at success, it's affording quality, being able to scale up and afford quality art, quality editing. It could be being able to consider translations if you want to get your work translated into other languages. There's audiobooks.
You could be big like David Hasselhoff in Germany.
You could. God. Germany is actually the number 2 market for audio.
To my knowledge, I'm the only one here who has a book that's been translated and it's for sale in Germany.
Oh, look at you.
You are so badass.
Not really. I understand the translation may not be great. But it is what it is.
JR says he got invited to the AI audiobook beta. Still has no idea about making a decision there. I also got invited and promptly deleted the email.
I've been invited to all sorts of stuff because I'm a podcaster and everything else. And they're kind of like, hey, you need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. You need to try our new AI tool for this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
you need to fuck off.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm just giving everybody the middle finger and sending that stuff to spam where it belongs. I am curious how that's going to go, though. I am curious how that's going to go.
How
what's going to go? Audiobook crap that they're trying to do now.
My guess is that it's going to be a 2-tiered sort of thing where you've got AI generated for the masses who have no taste and human narrated for the people that actually like what audiobooks are supposed to sound like. Not that I have strong opinions.
No, not you at all. Not at all.
I wonder how, what rights you're going to retain over your written work. If stuff's being used to train, train for machine learning, and whether or not you can opt out of it. I would also, you only have one chance to make a first impression. So I have seen authors get ripped apart because they went with a synthetic voice. So
JR says
And
his business manager, sorry,
I
cut you right on.
I probably should be.
JR said his business manager, aka mom, is against it. He is leaning towards it. I'm going to say, word to your mother.
Word to your mama, who doesn't wear combat boots. Brett says, hey, I use AI for my sound engineering. And it is awesome. Yes, but it is not trying to speak.
I mean, anytime you're using, plugins to clean up your audio, you're using something that is learning. It's I mean, with Adobe, I use adaptive noise reduction. It plays through,
You got an
it goes
adaptive
through and
limiter,
learns what's there.
compressor.
Yeah. So that's not an issue. I'm going to be learning how to use Isotope RX. Not an issue. But it's not trying to clone and copy and reproduce what I do.
And try and understand context, which it can't.
Right.
This is a big deal. Very big deal in anything audio.
And we said we weren't going to talk about it, and here we are talking about it.
I tried to steer away from it. You guys started it.
I can't remember how it got started.
It was all your fault.
Probably. I'll admit that it's probably my fault. Getting back to what we were talking earlier about success, I think that the metrics of success, while they are dependent on the person, they also evolve over time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that when Stephen King started, his metrics of success were much lower than they are now. And they were probably radically different than they are right now.
Yeah. And I can say from my own experience, it's been, the switch from what was going on before the Black, when I originally published it, was nothing as far as sales go. Mm-hmm. And then after the Black, I got a taste of what it is to have some success and monetary success, and started going, okay, well, this needs to be the bar. And I have not been able to hit that bar really since I stopped writing the Black, because the Derelict Saga didn't do nearly as well as the Black series did.
Ocean Monsters is where you need to be.
And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I can tell you at least 5 of them. But one of them is definitely lack of PR on that series, and I won't say anything more about that. But the success now is, does the book pay for itself? Okay, now it paid for itself. How much is it contributing to my mortgage? How much is it contributing to my bottom line on my business expenses? How is it doing this? Is it bringing in people? Now I have to think about that for each of these books. Is it doing its job? Is it making its money? Because basically we're kicking these things out there, and I'd pardon the metaphor, but they're basically prostitutes on the street corner.
Oh my God! Whoring for Paul's security.
That's what those books are.
Would you like I mean, I can give you a slightly better, or a less hookerish metaphor.
Your books are hoors, hoors, I tell you.
Well, literally, you kick them out on the street, and they're sitting there. They're showing off their leg and everything else, trying to attract a car. What else would you say? I mean, and then
we could go way down the road on this.
Experience to explain your books, Paul.
Oh,
damn! I'm sorry, I wouldn't hit that with his dick. Anyway.
Ooh.
So one of the analogies that came up in a professional development thing I did for narration is that when it goes with auditions, but I think it also goes with writing books. What you're doing is essentially you're sending ships out. Think of your like 15th, 16th century explorers and your merchants. Nobody was in the shipping business. People were in the merchant business. And you put stuff out there and you assumed a lot of those ships weren't going to come back. But when they came back, then you made a bit of a profit. So a lot of times what we wind up doing is we write, you write the book, you put the product out, and you send the ship out, and you've got to wait for it to return, to come back. And sometimes if you built it well and it was successful and it had, good stuff on it, great. It comes back with a profit. Sometimes they sink halfway through and you just have to chalk up the loss. But you learn.
Yeah. One of the things that I have noticed is that with each book that I put out, my cushion grows, because even when it's not producing a lot of money, each book does still produce some money. And it's definitely a lot easier to keep things flowing when you've got 40 books than when you have 2.
Yes.
That would be the other thing is basically, and this goes back to what we've been saying and what I've known and just been not able to do. Your best advertising for your books is your next book.
Yeah.
We'll see if AAT raises the rest of the Black series, which would be hilarious for once. Be damn funny. But the changes in how I looked at things, and I know a lot of writers who would kill to have my success, absolutely kill to sell the number of copies that I've sold and make the money that I've made thus far, and not to mention the people that know who I am, and there are more than I think there are. There were a lot of folks who would kill for that. And I understand that because I've been on that side of it. So it's not like I've forgotten the roots of being completely unsellable, unmarketable, and utterly ignored. And if I didn't have the podcast, I wouldn't have known anybody was enjoying my work at all. So I'm in a little bit of a unique position from that standpoint because I have the built-in marketing monstrosity that is the podcast, if you can call it that, because I think a lot of people are waiting for the next Black book and they're skipping these two, and yet it's still getting 12 to 1,500 listens. So it's really difficult to measure success. If you look at my YouTube numbers, they're pathetic. I've got maybe 200 people listening to each episode. Those folks are buying books, guys. Even if there's only 200 of them, they're buying books.
Mm-hmm.
And that matters, right? I'm not making any money on advertising, allowing it to monetize my podcasts or YouTube account. And yet for me, they are successful, very much so. So that's kind of the different, that's kind of a different way of looking at things than how I used to look at them.
You talk metrics of success, and another author comes to mind, Nora Roberts. She has written an ass ton of books that she's published, and her level of success has granted her the ability to write and publish whatever the hell she wants. She decided to leave romance behind and write something that's more romance adjacent. And that makes her happy. That's her level of success. And she's earned it.
Yeah, when you reach the point where you can flip genres and not give a shit and not even worry about it, God, you want to talk about being in it would be like Terry suddenly switching. Okay, Terry's now going to write urban fantasy. Will all of his sci-fi people come along for it?
No, they will not.
No,
probably not.
But
probably not.
And I say this from experience. When Secret World Chronicle got written, it was because Mercedes Lackey wanted to try and write superhero science fiction. And she was writing fantasy. And it was like, okay, let's give this a go. And sure, some people who followed her work followed her to that series, but others were like, oh, superheroes, space Nazis, sure, let's go give this a try. And then somebody with a back catalog gets that bump and moves forward. So there is that kind of, like you said, the leeway to shift genres and try something new. Um, and hey, if you have a robust back catalog, it doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't. If you have, I mean, the back catalog is the Terry can tell you, I'm pretty sure I can speak for him here. Once you have that back catalog, every book, somebody's looking through that and they're seeing how many other books you've got. And they're taking a look at that. Even when they're just, is this person just put this one book out, or do they have more of these? How many are in the series? Are there 3 or 4, so I can basically mainline these bitches if I like the first one. People look at that. I look at that. You know, as a consumer, I look at that. And now when I see my bibliography, it's terrifying because I have a lot of work out there now.
There's a saying, quantity has a quality all its own.
Yeah, there's something to say for that. When the bibliography starts, rolling off the page onto page 2,
When you
got
have
to
to
a
have
point
multiple columns.
when you have to have multiple columns for your bibliography, it's kind of like, oh my God, you don't realize just how much you've written until you look back at that and go, holy shit, how the hell did I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the success in and of itself, is looking at that back catalog and knowing that I have struggled that many books to get done and managed to accomplish them. Sanders says genre I want to write in is sci-fi fantasy, specifically like space travel, high-tech sci-fi with high fantasy magic elements.
Allow me to suggest Glenn Stewart's
I knew it!
Starship's
I knew it!
Mage.
I knew it.
That
I knew
series
you were going to go there.
incorporates magic and science fiction elements, and I think you would like it.
Yep. And I've narrated 2 books. I think they're under my pseudo. I'll post them in the live channel. But they blend aspects of tech and high fantasy, little weird, little out there, and technically it's men's fantasy, just without the sex. Plenty of
Without the
ideation,
sex.
though. Yep. Harem.
Okay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Always the
And
harem.
elves.
Brett says, I want to write romantic futuristic space murder mysteries like Nora Roberts.
The In Death series is an excellent one, and I am current on it. In all, I think it's like 78 books in the series thus far. Something ridiculous like that.
Oh,
I would have to look and
That's
see.
impressive.
That's bonkers.
Isn't it, though?
Tim says one of mine is overtly marketed as space fantasy these days, but there's no magic in it. And why are you calling it space fantasy? Does it have magical creatures? That's my question.
Space dwarves.
Space Wars.
59 books in the series.
Dear God.
Because that's so much more manageable.
See, as a reader, I see that many, and I'm like,
There is a point. I've seen different sets of authors writing in a particular series where they're putting out books so fast that it becomes an impediment to the success of the series, where people go, I can't keep up with this. I'm going to stop reading because I just can't keep up with what's being produced. So you can overdo it.
Happened with me with Marvel. I will not watch another Marvel movie because I'm just fucking done. There's 15 bazillion of them.
There are a lot of properties that do that, trying to get into certain comics and following a line, certain anime that have like 500 episodes. I'm like, I would love to get into the story. I don't have the time.
With J.D. Robb or Nora Roberts writing as J.D. Robb in this, even though it's got 59 books in the series, they only come out like 2 books a year. It's not rapid release.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what she's built up over a long period of time of publishing that series. And then Brett mentions the Destroyer series has over 150 novels. Those are pretty small novels, though, on the main part.
Yeah, they are. They're like 40,
thin
40,
ones.
50. 30 to
Those
40,
are short
somewhere in
novels.
there. They're very short. Thank you, Snuppy. I'm glad you enjoyed Derelict Neptune Scars. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Aw, the space suspense. Well, I think you'll like AAT, and I think you'll like the next book I'm writing. If I pull it off, if I pull off this next book, I will be so happy because I've been trying to write the goddamn thing for like 8 years. So if I pull this off, this will be attempt number 5. And if I
So,
pull it off, I will be extremely happy.
Brett, along with the Destroyer, you need to go ahead and have the Mac Bolan series.
What was that, 250, 300
The
books?
Executioner. I don't know, a lot of books.
Oh
And
my
then you
goodness.
add in the Able Team and Phoenix Force and Track and all the other ancillary properties that spring off it. Yeah, that
I never read past.
Books?
Yeah, it's Gold Eagle. I never had past the original series because there was just something about having, a military badass attacking the mob that was much more entertaining than the rest that came after. I was like, yeah, I don't want to see him transition to something else. I want to just see this. That's it.
I understand.
There's something about a series where it's pure vengeance and you just want to see somebody get thrashed.
Sopranos.
Holy shit,
Sopranos
Matt
in
Bolan,
space.
631 novels to date. Dear God.
That's a lot of words.
And Don Pendleton's been dead for like 40 years.
He would be very pleased with this output.
Oh, fuck yes, he would. Yes, he would. Well, we have used up this hour babbling about all sorts of things, and hopefully it was good for you. And if it wasn't, or if it was, you can send an email to show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can find me on Mastodon at Paul_E_Cooley at VYRSE.social. You can find us on Facebook at the Dead Robot Society Writing Community, where we all mangle the madness. You can find us at YouTube at youtube.com/DRS Podcast. And we are live every Saturday, 3 p.m. CST. Like and subscribe so you always know when we are live. I like how that rhymes. And if you want to support the show and help us pay our StreamYard bills and etc., you can find us at patreon.com/DRS Podcast and buymeacoffee.com/DRS Podcast. Where for as little as $1 a month, you get to hear us rail about AIs and Mistress V. Mistress V is going to spank us with her
And
digital.
she's promised that she's going to bring out the ruler in this after show. So there you are.
I have several.
As opposed to the floppy tape measure. And at the $10 level, you get your name read. And our $10 patrons are Nate Cosby, Antoine Batts, Tony L. Joy, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, Isabel Cushy, and Tim Niederreiter. Thank you to all of our patrons for making this show possible.
It's not floppy. It's flaccid.
I said flaccid and you didn't like that.
I said we can't use that, but we can use it in the after show.
Okay. Who? Antoine says he's been naughty, mommy. Oh, boy.
Cannot. Oh, my Lord.
That note, we are gonna
obviously,
get out of here.
V, you have missed an opportunity to have your OnlyFans page where you are Mistress V and you dominate people.
Dominate me, baby.
Oh,
Dominate me,
boy.
baby. We're out of here.
I